So we're discussing we're coming out of the free jazz movement, or the free jazz kind of most prominent area in the 60s, going into the 70s. We're going into uh, fusion or jazz rock, and we're discussing the album Bitches Brew, rather unfortunate title, Miles Davis album. Okay, so guys, listen to this. This is very interesting. It says here, uh, Bitches Brew is a studio. Let me just share my screen. Um, yeah, I listened to this album a lot at university, a lot. It brings back so many memories.
Feels like you're hallucinating when you listen to it.
It feels like you're hallucinating when you listen to it. It's exactly the effect it gets. Okay, so Bitches Brew is a studio double album by American jazz trumpet player Miles Davis, released on March 30, 1970. Look how nice that is. Remember we talked about bebop 1940s, free jazz, cool jazz 1950s, free jazz 1960s, and then going on to the 70s. And here at the start of the 70s comes this album. It marked his continuing experimentation with electric instruments that he had featured on his previous record, the critically acclaimed In a Silent Way. So In a Silent Way actually came before that, with probably a similar concept. With these instruments such as the electric piano and guitar, Davis departed from traditional jazz rhythms in favor of loose, rock-influenced arrangements based on improvisation. So listen to this, guys. The album initially received a mixed response, but it gained momentum and became Davis's highest charting album on the US Billboard, peaking at number 35 in 1971. It won a Grammy Award for Best Large Jazz Ensemble. In 1976, it became Davis's first gold album to be certified by the Record Industry Association of America. In subsequent years, Bitches Brew gained recognition as one of jazz's greatest albums and a progenitor of the jazz rock genre. So there, bang, slap bang, in the fusion pocket there, okay, as well as a major influence on rock and funk musicians. In 1998, Columbia released the complete Bitches Brew Sessions, a 4-disc box set that includes the original album and previously unreleased material. 2003, the album was certified platinum, reflecting shipments of 1 million copies. How insane is that for that insane music?
Yeah, you wouldn't expect that.
Yeah. What was happening, guys? What was happening in rock music in the 70s? What were the big bands? Who's the one that went psychedelic?
Didn't Led Zeppelin go psychedelic?
Okay, Led Zeppelin was the precursor to heavy metal, but Pink Floyd, guys.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't this have a bit of a? Okay, it's certainly not the same thing. But
No,
Pink
I'm not
Floyd,
the biggest Pink Floyd person, so my mom is.
Okay, cool. So Pink Floyd came out with these long introductions, these long ethereal, like floaty, hallucinogenic introductions. And before they even started singing the song, it was like, where's the words, guys? And then like 5 minutes later, the song starts or the lyrics start, you know? So this was happening in the 70s. Pink Floyd also came up in the 70s. You know, so it was a mishmash of sort of ideas around freedom and rock and whatever. And then, you know, yeah, and then, you know, but then you also had bands like Queen, who played straight ahead rock, you know, and Led Zeppelin, who was a precursor to heavy metal, and so on. And then, yeah, so I suppose everybody shared ideas and things. As I said before, Miles Davis started dressing differently. He started dressing in leather pants like a rocker. You know, he went from suits and ties in the jazz thing to like a whole rocker outfit. So he changed his headspace. Okay, so cut a long story short. Listen, for homework, go and listen to Amandla. So there are 2 weeks there on Google Classroom from an album called Amandla. That is jazz rock, I suppose, or fusion. It's later Miles Davis. It's got that sax player that I told you on Kenny Garrett. So listen out with the sax player. So this just very interesting, guys. So these albums are cited here on Wikipedia as having are cited as having an electronic aspect. In 1977, Giorgio Moroder created an electronic track that led into what we now call EDM. So it's interesting because Miles, I'm talking pop music. He created a track called "I Feel Love" with Donna Summer, but he created the whole track in his studio himself. And that was the kind of the first time that an electronic track was created, as opposed to using a band in a studio in the pop music world. And everybody said, "Oh, wow, that's amazing." So the electronic kind of drive in music became very prominent in the 70s. And in 1977, there were three things that kind of led up to that thing. Disco, the movie Saturday Night Fever made disco popular. There was a German band who were using electronic instruments called Kraftwerk. Kraftwerk means power station. And then there was this guy, Giorgio Moroder, who had who made up an actual electronic track, which kind of, I suppose, in a way, kickstarted electronic dance music. So preempting that is Miles Davis in the 70s, and with Bitches Brew, and using a more electronic-based type of backing and instruments to create the sound he wanted. So anyway, okay, that's it. That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.